welcome in to the ultimate golf club stamping tutorial. My name is Ben, I'm a PGA professional, and I have been building golf clubs since 2011. What we are going to do in this video is reveal all of the secrets, open all of the doors, and nothing will be left behind the paywall. Just follow through with me on this guy, and even at the end, I will show you the results of my latest and greatest project. It's going to be pretty awesome. I'm super excited. Let's jump in and see what happens. All right, so I'm sure the first question you're asking yourself is, why would I stamp? And my question back to you is, why wouldn't you stamp? It adds a splash of color. You can put fun, funny, motivational, or whatever other horrible quotes on there that you would like. It can be really, really helpful during that round. And if you do something cool and you've got them set up like mine, and I'll show you them in a second, you can show them to your friends after you hit better shots than them. Anyway, what it also does is it makes your golf clubs 100% your own. No one else can claim them. They are yours, and if someone steals your wedge at the range or at the golf course, they know because it's going to have your markings on it, and then they can't lie about it because you'll know. Anyway, but it's just a really cool process, and again, I would always ask and challenge, why wouldn't you stamp it? Because it doesn't literally do anything to the performance of the golf club, and it's not distracting in any way, and it doesn't damage anything. So why wouldn't you do it? So let's do it. Alright, so after that impassioned speech on why you should get your stuff stamped, I'm sure you're wondering, can I do this from home? And the answer is 100% yes. I wouldn't be making a tutorial video unless you could. The only thing I'll say is that even though the tools are fairly basic and the procedure is fairly basic, getting really good at it takes a lot of practice, and unfortunately, you don't get to undo anything you just did. So once you hit that thing, it's in there forever. So make sure that you go through and you find some stuff that you don't really care about marking up first. And with that also being said, that brings up the investment cost. So again, while the tools are fairly basic, you can get some basic stuff starting at about $150, but it can range all the way up to like $1,000 if you're going to get like an electromagnet and some fancy stuff like I plan on getting. But so anyway, if you don't want to deal with all of that hassle and you just want to send me what you want to do, I can make your vision a reality, and you don't have to worry about all that, and it's probably going to cost you a heck of a lot less. So anyway, you can 100% do this stuff all on your own, and what we're going to do now is actually go over all the tools, and I've actually got recommendations for you and affiliate links basically posted in the description below with anything and everything that you would need. So let's just go over some of the tools now, and if you do choose to give this thing a shot at home and DIY it, then you'll know exactly what to get. Dude, let's do it. All right, people, first things first, what we're going to look at first is the stamps. The stamps, these puppies are C.H. Hansen's. These are really nice. These are 5/32 of an inch, heavy duty, as I'm sure you can see there below. And what I would very much recommend is make sure that you're getting a steel setup for steel striking surfaces. So, don't get like some cheap craft ones because you're, trying to be cheap or whatever. Like, make sure that these things don't explode on you, and make sure that they don't like wreck your piece or, get damaged themselves when you're striking them. So C.H. Hansen's. I would also recommend Young Brothers. Those ones are really pretty cool too. And then the only other thing that I would recommend is once you open this puppy up, it's pretty sweet how nice this all sets up. So would highly recommend these. But what you can also look for is the different sets and numbers and setups. So like, do you want this type of font? Do you want that type of font? Do you want it to be a different size? So these are 5/32. 5/32 looks about like that in terms of size. But this one here is a little bit smaller. So when it's a little bit smaller, you can fit more on it, which is kind of cool. But if it's larger, then that means that you can get more pop and more power out of it. So the other thing that I would recommend too, these are 5/32. This is 5/32. You can do 3/16, you can do an eighth, you can do a quarter. I probably wouldn't do like a 1/2 inch, and I probably wouldn't do a 1/4 inch. 1/2 inch is gigantic, and a 1/4 inch is teeny tiny. You won't even be able to see it. So I would recommend 5/32 and probably an eighth in those two. You can get uppercase, you can get lowercase, blah, 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 blah. But again, these C.H. Hansons are super nice. This is the 36 pack with everything in it. But then you can also go after Young Brothers and a couple other ones that I'll link down below too. This is a hammer, Thor's hammer. It's just a hammer. You don't really need anything crazy other than a mini sledge. Like, don't use a regular hammer, use this kind of hammer. Very, very helpful because the striking surface is much larger and it allows you to screw up a little bit. But this one is also really nice. 3 pounds, got a little heft and heaviness to it, so you don't have to like go up and down and like bring this thing down crashing to the earth in order to hit it hard enough. I've got that linked below. And then the last thing right here that I'll pull into the spotlight is Vice/Anvil type of combo. Again, this one right here is linked over in the description too. This one is a really nice one from Golfworks, but you can kind of find them anywhere and they're all kind of a similar setup. The only other thing that I would talk about is the new magnetic setup that I'm going to get. New magnetic setup is basically just a flat surface with a bunch of different magnets inside of it. And so you can basically go and you can put it on there and it goes and it sucks to it and then it doesn't move around. So that's really, really nice because as of right now, I make sure that this thing is no shaft on it when I want to stamp it. Like, you can't have a shaft on it, and you can try and clamp this thing if you want with this big old C-clamp, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a great process because it's going to kind of get in the way, and like where you stamp it's weird, and then you're like in here trying to like, and then you're trying to make sure that it's straight, and you're trying to hit it, and then you look at it, and you're like, oh, it looks terrible. So I wouldn't recommend that setup. This is fine. Take the shaft off if you're going to do it that way. Otherwise, get an electromagnetic setup or a magnetic setup where that thing just goes. That's what I'm going to get. So it's going to be awesome, and I don't have to take the shaft on and off every single time I want to do something that I care about, which is always. So anyway, I've got those also linked down below so you can check them out. But as far as that goes, it's pretty simple. Hammer, some kind of striking surface, something to stick your club to, something to force it to stay in place, and then the stamps. So that's the tools. That's what we got. All right, it's time for the do's and the don'ts. Do not keep the shaft on if you don't have a magnetic hitting surface. For this reason. Don't, if you can help it, use these to secure your golf club. The other thing that I wouldn't recommend doing is that you're trying to stick this thing to your anvil and you don't have a magnetic hitting surface that you attempt to try and secure the grip. That doesn't really work. Otherwise, you're going to have someone down here holding on to it and going, oh, please. Oh, yes, I'm still down here. Yes, I'm still holding. Yes, I will hold on. Oh, no, I did move it. You're right. It is now ruined. Whoops. This one isn't an all-timer, but it is really, really useful, and it is make sure that you do mask off your striking surface. As you can see, I've scribbled off some of the areas where I don't want to mark because there's either logos or things already there, like that, or like that. But what it does make really, really helpful and sense to do is even if you don't need this and you're not trying to make dead straight lines or whatever, you can write on here in about the size of your stamp to make sure that everything fits. So if I got my stamp set right here and I'm trying to make sure, I can go on here and I can go, oh, that's interesting. Okay, font's about that size. And I can make sure that the whole thing fits. The last thing you ever want to do, again, a don't, is don't mark off any of this area. Don't do any prep work and just start stamping and hitting. The last thing you ever want to have is put hip hippopotamus on here, and then you get to hip and then you run out of space right there. Okay, so don't do that. That's bad. As far as freehanding and some of that goes, you don't always have to do that. And I'm not going to do it on this one because I'm just going to freewheel it. And I'm just going to go and I can see a little bit better where everything goes. So not always totally crucial. But if you do want to do something with a dead straight line on it, you can do a piece of masking tape like this. You can find yourself a ruler. You can grab a marker and you can make a dead straight line on it just like that, which is really, really helpful and really useful. So do that. don't just randomly start stamping, and don't check your work before you do it. And, also make sure that you think through your process. Here's another don't. Don't stamp on a surface like this. That's bad. Also, don't stamp on a surface that looks like that. That's bad. Make sure that you stamp on something that is hard and firm and can take up with the beading, like this big piece of metal. The last thing has already been said, but make sure that you use high quality stamps like these, and don't use crappy, cheap craft ones that aren't made from metal. Use nice ones like this. Alright, the moment you've all been waiting for. The actual stamping. Just a couple more things before we go through this though, and I actually show you some actual stamping. Make sure, first and foremost, and this goes without saying, but I have to say it, that when you strike this thing, you are exactly sure of what you want, and you feel comfortable and ready to go, because you can smash your fingers, and you can also make sure that you screw up, basically. Like if you're not ready to go and you're not rip-roaring and excited and you're not feeling fully confident, just stop. But yes, so make sure that you are ready to go. Make sure that once you stamp this thing, you are fully confident. And the other thing that you do is make sure that you are very careful with what you stamp. So, for example, don't stamp on things like metal woods. Don't stamp on things like thin-faced irons. Don't stamp on back cavity areas or very thin spots on irons. You can stamp on something like this. If you can help it, try not to stamp on thin spots like this on wedges and use the thicker pads. As far as the rest of this goes, the hitting is really, really important. Make sure that when you got this thing, you hit it hard, but also like not too hard. Like this isn't like Thor's hammer coming down from on high here, where this comes down like that, because you can actually get it to poke through and look terrible on the other side of the face and like visible. So, hit it hard. I would tell you, make sure that you start off and you feel like you hit it harder than is probably necessary, because actually poking through is a whole nother thing. The other thing that is going to happen to you, I'm sure once or twice, here's a couple of examples of me screwing up doing some of these things, is not hitting hard enough and then not finding the area and not putting it back exactly in the right spot, like on this example. Then there's also the hits where not everything is deep enough. You didn't hit it hard enough, but then also the stamp wasn't vertical enough. Or make sure that when you do hit it and you feel like it's in a good spot and it was vertical, that you go through the four corners drill. What the four corners drill is hitting it twice vertically, hard like you can, but then if you look at it and you see that it is not in the right spot, be very, very careful again about replacing it, but then we're going to go north, south, east, and west. And also make sure that when you do that, you can get the different parts of the stamp to be a little bit deeper and to fill in correctly, so they hold paint fill, but then make sure that when you do the four corners drill that it doesn't go like way over here and you're not hitting it like that. Like just a little bit is fine. Just going to put a little bit of extra pressure in whatever area needs it. So like 10 degrees or less is all that you need. Alright, so what my plan is here for this wedge is to do what I call sprinkles. So just think of like sprinkles on a donut a little bit, but what we're going to do is with this black background, we're going to put a bunch of uppercase letter I's on here, and what we're going to do is maneuver them all over the place and have one here, and 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 just kind of move it and make it look nice and, different and kind of free-flowing and whatever. And the free-flowing is why I'm sure you're like, well, but you didn't actually take your own advice and you didn't actually just make your own marking, just like you said. Well, that's because I'm doing it free-flowing, and I don't really want to have all that in the way, and I really want to be able to see what's already on here. So when I'm going to be doing my sprinkles, I want to see exactly what's going on, and when I do have that finished off, this is for next week's video, but I'm going to put in some cool pop color contrast with some blue or some yellow and some orange or something like that. Any of these that are over here, and we'll make it look really, really cool. But so now to the actual hitting itself, what I'm going to do is get this thing lined up. Again, it doesn't matter, but make sure that this thing is like exactly where you want it, because it's important that you don't like put it upside down or something. But so I'm just going to kind of start it off here and go from there. Alright everyone, check out what you've all been waiting for, the results of the stamping with the sprinkles. I mean, I think it looks pretty awesome. I can't wait to paint fill it in the next video, and I hope you stick around and hang out with me. Again, you can certainly do this yourself, but if you want it to look pro like that, and if you want to have it filled in with a bunch of cool colors like this, or you just don't want to have to worry about it, give me a shout, and I'm happy to knock it out for you. Get after it, let's have fun.